Since taking the course, I feel much braver, much more courageous in the words I use and how I talk about what is happening, what's at stake, and how each of us can be bringing our full self to this moment.
I decided to take the course because wa- I was feeling increasingly distressed about the state of our planet and the impacts that are already unfolding in devastating ways in the world. And I wanted to see what ways I can be helpful in anticipating that and helping people through it.
For me, the course was transformative, and the main reason was really the people. Of course, the content was extremely important to me, but the opportunity to really spend focused time with people who I would then be eager to follow up with in the future was the biggest thing for me.
The course format provided a safe and respectful container for us to all learn and share together. I felt really safe and able to open up, and at times, even I felt I could be vulnerable without being judged.
So I've had a lot of time to think about the course that ended a couple of months ago, and it was so meaningful to me at the time. And that isn't it isn't always the case that something meaningful at the time continues to feel that way in retrospect, but it certainly has in this case. It allowed us to form a community of support during the course, and that has continued and in some ways really evolved afterward. And to me, that is so critical because in order to be able to play leadership roles and in order to be able to communicate about biospheric collapse and societal collapse, it one has to be, in my view, striving all the time to find the psychological and perhaps spiritual support to face these issues that are so frightening and sad and difficult.
This course allowed me as an academic to sit back and say, how do I communicate outside of academia? How do I find a voice in a large audience in ways that can influence the political, social, and human agenda around climate impacts?
I came to the course hoping for an intellectual approach to thinking through the multiple crises that are intersecting. But what kept me was the unique structure of the course that involved appreciating the affective nature of our beings.
Societal and ecological breakdown. These are things that most people haven't even begun to integrate into their understanding of the world. So I found these new tools that the course offered really effective in helping to start to broaden the conversation. Things like deep relating, moral psychology, deconstructing environmental frames, and especially stories of self. Realizing that you can bring in your own personal experiences in a way that makes things much more relatable, much more accessible to people.
The tools that we were taught are so helpful, and some of them were really, quite new to me. Uh, the deep listening uh, skills went beyond what I already uh, knew and practiced, and also the storytelling went beyond what I already knew and had practiced. And that's critical because it's overwhelmingly clear that just presenting facts amounts to very little, maybe even nothing. One thing that I found so valuable about the course was the movement between Jem's more academic lectures and Katie's exercises involving movement and dance and deep listening and deep relating. And the movement between them, I think, allowed for a kind of integration within me.
I was surprised, actually, how I was able to go pretty deep in terms of self reflecting. I gained some new perspectives on the events and forces that have shaped my life, that have shaped my way of framing the world, my way of thinking, even. I found this pretty illuminating, um, surprisingly, and actually quite liberating.
When I learned about the course, I was sold, and it took no time at all for me to decide to apply. What I intuited and what was true for me was that I needed a group of people with whom I didn't have to explain my perspective, that I could immediately begin to work with, and this group is that group.
This course was unique because of the people it brought together. For 2 weeks, I was on a call every day with people from different parts of the world, from people in different professions, different skill sets, and together we were talking about adaptation and how to show up in these times.
Yes, overall, the course had a really positive impact on me. I feel in many ways more grounded and definitely more connected to a community of people who I can share with now going forward. Um, I feel like I have more tools in my toolkit to be able to broaden the conversation and integrate these messages into more of what I do. And generally, it's also reaffirmed my belief that we have to come together as these communities, whether online or offline, and find ways not just to communicate about these issues, but to actually figure out what are the most loving responses to our predicament.
Maybe you're a bit like me and have worked for many years really hard on environmental issues, social justice issues, and had hoped that reform would happen and fast enough to enable some kind of transition to a more sustainable and fair way of life, and have now realized that that was in vain, and we can't go on just pretending that this is going to happen. The reality is we're in a turbulent world that's going to get worse, and my hope is that there will be many of us who come to that point and don't then just sort of walk away from the networks and the expertise and even the status that we have, but actually that we try and repurpose that for communicating and leading around the truth as we see it today.